For most, autumn is a time of seasonal change, the beauty of the leaves shifting colour, and perhaps a slight melancholy at the passing of summer. For Jen Goy, autumn was a totally different experience. Year after year, she'd suffer the effects of debilitating depression, and its impact was devastating.
I feel raw, like if my mood, emotions, or psyche were a body, then I have no skin, exposed, vulnerable, super sensitive to noise as well. I don't want to be around any hectic activity, it's overwhelming. I do not want to do anything. Nothing feels remotely enjoyable, or rather most things. The trick here is finding the little things that I maybe might enjoy just a little bit and trying, or rather making myself to do these.
So you've always written about your experiences. You've got so many journals.
Yeah.
From when you were little.
I think my first was about age 14. I think it's been very much a coping tool to always be able to sit and write something. And then about 2 years ago, I started blogging. So I blogged for a whole year. Often when I was in the worst, in a real bad episode, I wouldn't have the energy or the creative impulse or wouldn't have the words to do it. So sometimes I would write and I'd be like, this is all awful. I feel terrible, 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 terrible. Like something really icky like that.
So when you look at what you've written on your blogs,
Yeah.
is it quite confronting for you? This is your whole life and it's all sorts of experiences that you've had over the last 30-something years.
In some ways, it makes me feel great because I feel how far I've moved and grown from maybe the person who at 18 wrote in really, really tiny handwriting, and whereas now I write like this. It's very interesting. And sometimes it makes me really sad, and I go, oh gosh, it was really so painful. And I'm not there anymore, but geez, that was hard. And often it's very insightful because I forget, and I am a very analytical person, and it's like, oh, so that actually happened, and that's what it was, and it fits pieces together, which being who I am, I'm always trying to fit pieces together, yeah.
Jen was born in Cape Town in 1969, the eldest of 2 siblings. It was a loving and a solid upbringing, and she was in a home environment where she could dream big dreams about her future.
Just a happy little girl who really was excited about life and wanted to be out there, and curious, enthusiastic, just an open, happy little girl. The picture I have is a little girl in a red anorak for some reason. That's my picture, with wellies and splashing in puddles.
You can speak.
She's she was always a very bubbly child.
Yes.
Jen's parents had a passion for the outdoors, and the family often went on hikes and camping trips. It was a very special space in their lives, and an important place for the young Jen.
I've always loved nature and mountains, and all of us have. And the 4 of us, to go into the mountains and to just totally escape everything.
Dad, he's a very special man and a very spiritual man, and there's just been a bond from early years. I think I just always have this feeling of a dad who was just there, and there was just this love, and that he really believed in me.
And then things started to change, a gradual shift that was hard to detect or even pin down.
It was a very slow change. If I look back from the age of about 8, 9, 10, things started being a bit more troubled and life was serious. That little Jenny was gradually kind of dying.
And I was aware that she was a bit down, and then it got to her standard 6 exams, and she just took to her bed and just wouldn't get off her bed. And eventually we got her up about 2 days before the exams. She pulled herself together and she wrote the exams, and she still came top, so it didn't make any difference. But I was very aware, and our doctor at the time said to her, let her go through this, she'll get stronger.
I actually found a journal that I'd started writing when I was 14. It was my first diary ever, and I went back and I read it recently, and I was, wow, I'd actually written that today I'm feeling all giggly and happy. And it's funny because I always feel like that after days when I'm depressed and I don't go to school.
But as she grew older, things slowly started getting worse.
I kind of expected, in a way, everyone was like that. I didn't really think that maybe I was different to others. So, or if I was, it was because it was my fault that I wasn't handling it like everyone else was.
Well, I realized that there was something wrong with Jenny, but still I was trying to think that perhaps there wasn't much wrong with her at all. I didn't really see that there was a problem in this, but you know, the real Jenny wasn't there.
Did the world think that you were fine?
The world thought I was fine, I'm pretty sure. Certainly no one ever came to me and said, "Are you okay?" Looking back, I think it's pretty obvious I wasn't fine. Just the way I was, the way, if you look at how I looked at high school and all sorts of things. But no one took the time to actually scratch that surface and find out, is there a reason or what is actually going on here?
She takes to her bed. In fact, I do remember going into the chemist and say, "Have you got anything that can get my daughter off the bed?"
Teenage years are difficult times, but for Jen they were excruciating. Amazingly, she managed to keep her emotional battles to herself, but a growing sense of shame began to emerge.
The shame is that hidden dark thing that it just sits there all the time underneath everything, that you're hiding this thing from everyone that I knew, okay, well, I often feel really down and I don't get out of bed, but I can't tell anyone about this, but I'm actually, and it stays there hidden and undermines everything.
It's only looking back that I see that she was a bubbly child, and then she went through a stage of depression.
It was probably a hard thing for parents also take on. You know, they've also got a child who's coping, getting the awards, getting top of the class. So that's actually fine, because that means she's going to get into med school and she's going to get into varsity. So actually it's all okay, and then the rest can kind of sort itself out.
As a teenager, Jen Goy had suffered annual bouts of deep depression, but despite this was always top of her class at school. She dreamt of becoming a doctor and of a future filled with purpose.
In fact, high school had been so hard that often it was only that dream of that I was going to be a doctor and do medicine that pulled me through. But it wasn't quite going to now be all so easy. In fact, things got harder. There were so many different phases in say a year, and there would be times or weeks or a month where I wouldn't want to go to lectures. I wouldn't want to get out of bed, and I just want to hide away. I'd be crying in the corner and not be with my friends. And then there would be other times where I'd just really be very vibrant. I'd be part of the group. I'd be going jolling, and I'd be organising maybe hikes up the mountain. And yeah, so there's all different sides of me. I think that's what made it so hard for the friends, is that have someone who's here organising everything and part of the group, and suddenly she doesn't want to come out of her room, and like she's just crying, and like, what's this about? And I think people would often take it quite personally.
At university, everything went well with us as far as the courses and the study was concerned. But when she broke up with the boyfriend, she then had a major episode.
What did you feel inside your body, or in your mind, in your spirit, when this started to happen inside of you?
It would descend very slowly. So it wasn't like Monday it was this and Tuesday was that. It would be, so perhaps I'd start feeling very stressed, or gradually start feeling very sad. Physically, I'm just very lethargic, and certainly if I can stay in bed as long as possible and sleep as much as possible. For me to actually have to make decisions about what to do, any kind of decision making is impossible. So to go into Pick and Pay and say, I want this loaf of bread and not that loaf of bread, or what shall I have for dinner, it's overwhelming. Just to hold myself up under that shower to wash my hair, it's just painful. And I might just do it and it'd be too much, and actually I've had to take a break from my shower. Get out of the shower, sit on my bathroom floor, and then go, okay, now I'm going to get back in the shower, and then I'm going to rinse the shampoo off. That's how hard it's been. It really would be, oh my God, I actually am here again. I am depressed. I'm in an episode. Oh my God.
The episodes occurred at round about the same time every year, and Jen began to notice a pattern. Autumn was the key, the changing season bringing about periods of debilitating emotional pain. And then after autumn, Jen's mood would lift again.
I think the best way to describe it, well, I read it somewhere and it just made so much sense for me, is if like the elves had come and just taken Jen away. So here all I have is this shell, and I'm still functioning and thinking, but it's this shell, and the essence of who I am is just gone.
1 year, unable to cope, things fell apart.
At university, and she refused to write an exams. She said, I won't write the exams. And we were very upset with this, because here you've got a child who won't write the exams. She's equipped to pass. She says, no, I'm not going to write it. And this was the first time we had this debate. And of course, she didn't write the exam, and she gave up medicine as a result of that.
My mom said to me, you really, really should go and see a psychiatrist. For a long time, I had been knowing I was depressed, and my GP had been prescribing antidepressants, and it was all... And I said, you know what? Yes, you're right. And weirdly enough, I always thought, but no one had ever suggested it. And then it got suggested. But when I read back into like journals again, and I realized that my mom, it had been suggested. And actually, I'd been the one who didn't really actually want to go and have it properly looked at, because I guess you're scared. You're scared of having a diagnosis because that's a stigma.
For the first time, Jen began to explore her condition, seeking help and trying to make sense of it all. It was a deeply confronting time.
I think it was really a really hard thing for the family. I had parents who were so proud of me, the academic dream child who was going to be the doctor, and for them it was a huge deal.
We decided, we said, get a degree, get something behind you.
How I dealt with it was I very quickly decided I was going to do accountancy. So it was quite a nice there was a little bit of a safety net in terms of achievement and being the professional.
Jen had gotten her BSc when she first entered medical school, but for her it was not enough. She decided to go back.
I suddenly had an epiphany at about age 32 that I'd always felt like a failure, and actually I really should have been a doctor and I must do it. So I missioned to get myself back into med school, wrote all the persuasive letters and did. I repeated my third year, did very, very well, and then started my fourth year and I had an episode. Some of my episodes that kind of happened and they just were sort of in a way a bit quiet. This was one that just impacted on me and people in a very explosive way.
Jen had to work with others in a stressful environment, and it proved disastrous.
There was a lot of teamwork, and I just wasn't able to function in the team. The conflicts come up and the fights, and I handle things, I get angrier. So things just completely imploded. So there was a lot of very bad feeling. And then also I wasn't coming to the party in terms of work, so we came to do projects and I was not pitching.
Jen's dream of becoming a doctor was shattered. Her parents, not knowing what else to do, took her into nature and invited a friend along who they felt might be able to help.
We took her for a camping weekend, and we had a psychiatrist friend with us. And I said, come on, Jenny, we must go walking. And she went for the walk. And he said to me afterwards, your daughter needs to be hospitalised. I remember crying the night away in our little van.
The focus was now directly on what was wrong with Jenny. No one was hiding from reality anymore.
And after like 45 minutes of listening to me, he said, how would you feel if I told you that it's something chemical, And I said, you know what? That is fabulous. That is wonderful. If it's something chemical, it means it's not my fault. I can let it go.
Jen was eventually diagnosed with bipolar type 2, a condition characterized by bouts of deep depression and then the ability to function. No highs and then lows, but rather a regular recurrence around autumn of a chemically driven pit of deep despair.
It's associating yourself with a word that carries for a lot of people there's a lot of imagery around that and assumptions and I guess the stigma at the end of the day.
Well, I couldn't believe that there was anything other than depression. I was quite certain she was depressed. I mean, that was obvious to me. But bipolar always sounded Well, a lot of people think it's one step worse, but actually it's not, you know. But she never ever had highs, so it was very difficult for me to see it.
I started wanting to tell people, a lot because of what I knew what had happened with relationships is that they wouldn't know, or I didn't know myself to be able to tell them. And I'd have a lovely friendship and all would be fine. And then a year into the friendship, I'd have an episode, and obviously I'd probably withdraw, not return phone calls, not want to go anywhere. And then often the friend wouldn't understand what was happening, and I'd lose the friendship.
Jen and I first met when I had started studying to be a nutritional therapist, probably about 7 or so years ago, I think. And she was in a really good space at that time. We also both enjoyed walking on the mountain, and that's something that she was brought up with. The other thing that's happened between me and Jen is that there are months when we don't really see each other, because I know, because she's not in a space to see me, and I just let it be. As a friend, I just think my best place to be was to be away from it, because it was very difficult for me, and for her.
Because it's hard for people to be around someone who's in that kind of space, and it's, I don't expect that, but just know that that's what's happening. It's nothing to do with you, it's to do with me, and if you can know that I'm not going to be able to be there for you in that time, and I don't expect you to have to do anything, it's just be there for me at the end of it.
Jen Goy and her family have fully embraced and are now living with her condition. Years of struggle have settled into a place of insight and hope.
Well, I still find it amazing that she can just talk about it like that. It's directly opposite to how I would behave. But I mean, that is her way of handling the situation. She
says to anybody now, I'm bipolar. Whereas previously she tended to hide it a bit too. But now that she's totally open about it, she's prepared to tell anybody that she is, and she's learning to live with it. Mm.
I think it's always wonderful to have a name for something, because instead of this thing that is implicating your life and it's sort of all intertwined, as soon as you can actually put a name and make it a thing, then you can start dealing with it and healing.
In her mid-30s, Jen Goy had finally been diagnosed with bipolar type 2. She realized that seasonal periods of debilitating depression since her teens were not her fault. The knowledge that her condition is chemical has freed her to make plans for the future. And in the midst of this unfolding, Jen's dad had a stroke.
But that actually was all part of the process, because I came out of that and I was very busy looking after him, looking after my mom, liaising with all the doctors, just being very on the go and then after about a month he was much better and I could let go of being so involved, and it was like, I'm enjoying this, I've got a purpose and I'm good at this, I can do stuff, I'm actually good in the world. And it was, okay, what now? I can't go back to not working, I need to do something. And I'd had the idea.
One day, while waiting for her medication at a local pharmacy, Jen saw a magazine for diabetics.
In this magazine, they've got like stories of real life stories of people with diabetes and how they're managing it and how they're doing all these amazing things and everything. And I went, but this is what I would have liked to have read back in the day, when I just felt so alone in it. I couldn't tell anyone, I was the only one, everyone else out there was just handling and fine. And I would have liked to have read stories of people who had what I had and were just like me and actually had dealt with it and were living normal lives.
So you took a leap of faith.
It doesn't feel like a leap because it feels like something I just had to do.
Well, I think that's been an enormous leap of faith for her. And she's had to have the courage to go ahead and do it, because she knows that she would be very depressed if it didn't work out.
I was determined that whatever I did now, I would make sure that really I could really make a commitment to it. And it wasn't just a case of what me wanting to do it, it also that would fit what I needed from a job or as someone with bipolar disorder.
One thing that helps a lot is that she's also settled and she realizes she can't do a normal job because she gets tired and she's got to control her tiredness.
Jen has started South Africa's first magazine focusing on mental wellness. It's one of only few in the world, and it's exceptional.
When the proofs came back for the first issue, where you actually, it might not be the exact same paper, but it actually now is together with all the ads in the right place, all the design, and it was like, and I remember just saying to my designer, I think we've actually done a pretty good magazine. I think we've done something good here. It has brought me so much that my life cannot not have thrived in it anymore. It has brought me the life without earning any money, and I'm not drawing a salary yet, and we're certainly not even breaking even yet, but it has brought me the stuff that I've always wanted in my life. It's just to be doing something that's my work, that I'm passionate about, that actually every day is a pleasure. It's just, I love every moment. It's not really work. I mean, it is at times I get tired and I have to do stuff and there's stress and there's deadlines, but most days, 90% is just absolute pleasure. I do what I'm loving. And I think I most just feel so grateful that this has happened, that I've kind of got this to do.
I think it's just brought her great joy that she's at last achieving something, and she sees this as maybe this is what her life was directing her to all along.
Everything she does on this is aimed at helping others, and she puts herself into other people, and that keeps her going.
When she first started talking about the magazine, I thought, oi, here we go again. And I think that I mean, I just think it's amazing that she's actually stuck this out. The fact that she's actually been episode 3 now for at least a year and a half. I mean, she told me last week that last year was the first year that she's ever had a whole year where she hasn't had an episode. I think that's amazing.
When I look back, it's just made it all worth it, and it makes sense of it all, where I am now with the magazine and doing what I'm doing, because everything that has happened to this point, all the hard things, all the really, really, really hard, painful, dark, suicidal times, and all the good times, it's all come together into this where it's just, wow, that's what it's all about. But I'm also very mindful that I'm in the start of a whole nother process. You know, this is just, I'm kind of in a little bit of a honeymoon thing, I think. You know, and who knows, maybe, but it's a whole nother journey I've started with it.